The word sorry is the universal way we have been taught how to acknowledge when we do something wrong or acknowledge we have hurt someone, and a way we can express our sorrow. Key thing is that that is a word that's supposed to mean that, but not everyone says it with meaning, or do they say it at all. Saying sorry is also a way for others to use it as a manipulation tactic to make it look like to others that they are taking accountability. So using it for image purposes. But really their goal is they just want the other person to stop being upset or to avoid any type of consequences. And this is very common in the case of the narcissist. But here's the thing, when the behavior doesn't change, or the narcissist won't actually acknowledge what they did, or they deny it happened, or they belittled it, it can cause great pain. It can cause confusion, and it can cause resentment. And then there's this constant question of, why do they do things and they never acknowledge or apologize or say sorry? I don't get it. So that's why today we're going to talk about why the narcissist never really feel sorry or guilty for what they do. And by talking about this can help you have a deeper understanding, and it can help give you some validation, and this can be a part of your healing process. So when someone does something to us, they mistreat us or hurt us, it's very natural to want acknowledgement and to want the behavior to stop and change. When behaviors change, that is the true apology. It's not the words, but the action. But when it comes to apology, the key thing is acknowledgement. When it comes to acknowledgement and acknowledging another person, that takes self-awareness and empathy. And we know with narcissists, self-awareness and empathy are two things the narcissist struggles with. Where self-awareness and empathy is, it's in the medial prefrontal cortex, and studies have shown that part of their brain is thinned. It's more thinned than the average human. So they don't have the ability to acknowledge things, not only because of the lack of self-awareness and empathy, but their lack of self-awareness is actually protecting them from something, and that is deep shame. Shame is the root of their personality, and it overtakes any guilt they could possibly have. Guilt is when you feel bad for something you did, and usually it's towards another person or another thing. Narcissists don't focus on their behavior and how it affects others, mainly because that takes empathy. And like we talked about, empathy is thinned in their brain. Now, shame is based on how society views you and how you feel about yourself at the core. And with shame, you feel bad about yourself at the core. You feel worthless. With shame, there is not only this inherently feeling that you are bad and worthless, but there's the fear of society seeing you as that as well. Since shame directly affects the way we feel about ourselves and how society views us, our ego will come in to try to protect us. And what it will do is it will not only go to great lengths to prevent us from feeling this way, but it will also cause us to cover up things that we've done or traits about ourselves to overcompensate for the deep feelings of worthlessness. So since narcissists are this empty of a shell of a person, because they didn't get to develop their own sense of self, they either dealt with extreme neglect or abuse. They are just their shame and their deep insecurities. And because most oftentimes narcissists are stuck at the age they're abused at, they're just a small child that's trying to fulfill their urges. So they're not logic, they don't have a lot of logic and reason. They're just this big emotional ball that's just trying to feel better as much as possible. But because they're shame and insecurities, they're this negative energy, they do it in negative ways. So the way the narcissist deals with all of the shame of who they are as a person, is they will detach from bad behaviors and pretend it didn't happen, justify it by saying they were right and you deserved it, victimize themselves, or make it seem like you were overly sensitive or over dramatic and that you are the problem. They don't care about what's happening to you. Their main goal is that they don't want you to find out who they really are, because with shame, there's always this matter of you're trying to hide things, you're trying to run away from things, you're trying to avoid things, and you're trying to avoid the scrutiny of society. So they're trying to hide who they really are, their bad behavior, and they try to prevent you from truly finding out these things at all costs. But at the same time, they have an urge for this negative supply since they feel so worthless. This supply is by hurting other people, specifically their target at the time. So if you are the target, they will focus on bringing you down either by humiliating you, talking bad about you, taking something from you, or talking down to you and making you feel as worthless as they do. That is how they temporarily fill this deep hole and shame that they have. If they can bring you down to their misery, it feels a little less lonely. So when they bring you down, they feel a little bit more uplifted. So this is how they fill their jar. But it doesn't last long, as negative energy is draining. And it's way more draining than it is filling. So they constantly need to do things in order to continuously fill their jar. And even with their positive supply of love bombing you or, taking credit for your accomplishments, that's still draining because it's coming from a negative place. And they don't feel genuine joy. They're doing it to suck the life and energy out of you. So all these things they do is always just draining and it's negative energy, and that's why they continuously suck the life out. Now, the confusing part of this is oftentimes, even in the DSM, it's said that they have this grandiose sense of self and they really like themselves. But here's the thing, it's a mask, it's a persona they put on. When you deal with deep shame, it's very painful. So in order to overcompensate, they will have grandiose thoughts and ideas about themselves. So they will put on this persona, this mask that they want people to perceive it as they're very happy and satisfied and they have all these accomplishments and they like themselves. But in reality, when you see someone overly emphasizing or overly saying that they really like themselves and they think that they're so awesome and they overly do it, that shows that they have a wounded ego and they're actually hurting inside, and they're just doing that to overcompensate because they don't truly believe it. They're just saying it because they want to believe it, but they don't truly believe it. Someone that actually feels that way doesn't need to convince others that they are or feel this way. So that's why they will appear like positive or happy or that they like themselves at moments. But really, they are just so miserable and they're constantly looking for ways to fill their jar. And usually it has to do with doing things to other people, getting validation and stimulation from outside sources. And they are addicted to this supply and they will protect it at all costs. And in order to protect it, they need to get rid of this feeling of guilt. And so that's why oftentimes they will not feel guilt. They do experience deep shame, but they're not conscious of this shame. They just know that they feel bad and they need something to make them feel better. What makes them feel better is to pick a target and to go after them. So that is their whole persona. They're not someone that you can connect with and have conversations with and that you can empathize and sympathize with. No, they're not gonna ever sympathize or empathize with you. It's more so, you are a tool I can use to make me feel better because I'm so empty and I feel worthless. Now, another reason why narcissists don't really feel guilt and they're not ever really sorry, it's because they want to avoid any responsibility at all costs. It's very uncomfortable to admit when you're wrong. That takes putting your ego to the side and saying, hey, I messed up or I did this thing, or acknowledging that other people have feelings and I did something to cause this pain in them. It is so much easier, and our ego will always get in the way and make it appear that it's someone else's fault, or that we have an excuse of why we did it and it wasn't so bad. With narcissists, it's not that they are not aware of what's wrong with what's right, because it's clear they have some sort of indication, otherwise they wouldn't hide majority of the things they do. It's more so a matter of trying to take away any of their feelings and doing whatever it takes to not feel these feelings. And again, it goes into that they want to avoid any criticism or scrutiny from society. So they will come up with little manipulation tactics in order to do that. And one of the things is by pretending like they're taking accountability. And this is so that they can trick people and avoid any of that discomfort and to keep the people still around without truly having to admit that they were in the wrong. They're just giving slightly, they're kind of throwing a little bit of a bone just to maintain that relationship, but they're not really trying to grow, or they don't really care to improve in the relationship or care about how you're feeling or how it affects you. So really it's just another manipulation tactic that they learned on how to make sure that you're less mad, or to completely gaslight you and act like it didn't happen at all and you made it up and that you're crazy. And what this can do to you is it can cause you to constantly question yourself and put the blame on yourself and say, oh, maybe I did this thing to cause them to react this way and I need to better myself, or I don't really understand what fully happened. And that's where the gaslighting comes into play. When it comes to guilt and shame, we're always going to make mistakes and we're going to fail and we're going to do things wrong. In their childhood, they didn't have caregivers or parents to say, hey, listen, you did something wrong. We got to acknowledge that. But now we need to own it and take accountability. We have to apologize for, when we're doing something wrong, or we need to find a way to make amends or make up for it. Like, they didn't learn that it's okay to make mistakes and to own it and to make amends. Instead, they learned I have to manipulate and control and make sure no one ever knows that I'm doing these bad things, and I need to continue to hurt other people for me to feel good. That's the only way that I feel good. So like I said, it's that addiction. So if you understand their motive, that they're addicted to creating chaos and taking from you, this will help you so that way you don't get tricked. It's really important that you are careful and you are aware they are never sorry. Even if they say the word sorry, they're not genuinely sorry, because one, their behavior doesn't change, and two, they don't really acknowledge that it affects you in a certain way, and they truly feel justified in what they are doing because they need it in order to feel okay. Now, just because they're sorry doesn't mean that you won't want to crave it and you don't want that acknowledgement and you don't want to be heard. Of course you still will want to be heard, and it's upsetting to have to deal with these things. But the hard truth is you will never get a true apology, a behavioral change, or an acknowledgement from them. Instead, they will continue this cycle where they will continue the games, they will continue the gaslighting, they will continue to do that bad behavior, they will continue to try to humiliate you, and they will continue to make you question yourself and make it feel like you are the problem or you are overly sensitive. When you have these conversations with them, they will always talk about how they feel and what they think. And you will probably feel worse after leaving the conversation. They don't care to truly listen to understand. They just want you to feel like you're getting what you want, but not actually truly giving you anything that you want. What can be really tricky is with covert specifically, is they have selective empathy and they are very good at manipulating others to make it seem like they are understanding or they care. So they'll put on a great image, or like they'll be like, I get it, or they'll maybe nod and they know how to do the gestures of what it looks like to empathize. But how you know that they're not truly empathizing is they will say, okay, that happened, but when are you gonna go over it? They'll make it into a lesson of like, you need to get past it and stop harboring over it. They really don't give you any true acknowledgement, and they don't really truly acknowledge their behavior and what needs to change and how they're doing something wrong. They just know how to make it look like that. So unfortunately, when it comes to narcissists, you have to understand you're never going to truly get that acknowledgement or that apology. Wanting an understanding or an apology, that can come from that wound and that ego, but you don't need somebody else to truly acknowledge you in order for you to feel better, for you to let something go or release it from inside of you. That's where you need to truly give yourself the acknowledgement and soothe yourself through it, and you hear the apology you need to hear of, I'm sorry that this person is unwell and they did these things to you, and they have a brain defect that they're incapable of acknowledging what they're doing. It doesn't make it right or okay, it is not at all. But in order for you to have peace, you need to see that they are unwell, and you need to have that acknowledgement for yourself of, I know what happened, I know what they did, and it hurt, and now moving forward I'm going to protect myself and understand their behavior is never going to change, and I need to change my behavior towards them rather than waiting for their behavior to change towards me. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. I love this color red. Do you think I could be on Baywatch? Like, I don't know if that's what they do on Baywatch. I think that's what they do. I was doing slow motion like running, but I wasn't really running. Okay, I need to go to bed. Good.